Hi gang, Rob here. It's the evening of February 2017, and I've got a From the Sharpening Bench video for you guys tonight. And one I was pretty excited to get in. This belongs to my customer Michael, and it is brand new from the maker, drop shipped to me for sharpening, and here it is. I've wanted to have some of this guy's work in hand for a couple years, and now I do. This is from custom knife maker Todd Davison, T.A. Davison Custom Knives, out of Kosciuszko, Mississippi. Todd has been making knives since 1981. He started in fixed blades, and for the last few years has become rather famous making slip joint pocket knives. And each pattern is from scratch, freehand, with no CAD drawing, no drawing of any kind. It's just whatever strikes Todd. And I really don't know what to call this. Let's look at the blade first. What would you call that? A spear foot? Sheep spear? You know, it's sort of a spear point, but the point is below the center line of the knife, so with less belly than a conventional spear point. Nice and broad. Long pull. Swedge on both sides. The stock is 1/8 inch. Very large radius hollow ground. I would have told you this is a flat ground blade had I not read on Todd's website that he uses all hollow ground blades. So he must have like a 18 or 20 inch contact wheel he does these grinds with. Nice hand rubbed satin on the primary bevel of the blade, another hand rubbed satin on the flats, and then the spine is a near mirror polish. Blade length on this thing is 2 11/16 inches, I guess. Handle is 3.5, so it's 3.5 inches closed. Just a slight serpentine pattern. It's really a straight sort of teardrop with just a little bit of asymmetry, a little more swell in the palm side or the finger side of the handle than on the spine. Nice acorn shield, all stainless steel knife. The blade steel is CPM 154. So let's kind of take this thing apart, analyze it closely, shall we? I find the blade style to be very functional, and it's very good in hand for utility tasks. Pretty nicely made and ground blade with just a couple issues I will cite, and they're very slight. Don't know if the reflection is going to let us pick this up, but a little bit of asymmetry in the swedge. On the mark side, the swedge is cut just a little shallower, so on the side with the pull, and a little deeper. I think you can see it right at the base of the swedge. We come in real close just to where the swedges begin here. You can see on the right side the swedge is cut just a little deeper. Plunge grind is very symmetrical. And this is just, I guess, one of the little disappointments about this knife. If we take a look at the width of my edge bevel, and I did this at 20 degrees, with just a tiny little cleanup. I wouldn't even call it a micro bevel. At about a degree more than that. But if you'll notice, edge is a little wide at the tip, which is fairly standard. You sort of expect that. It gets very skinny in the middle, and then quite a bit of flaring at the base. A little disappointing. It looks like a plunge grind that gets done pretty cleanly. You know, it looks like it disappears right at the top of the sharpening notch, and the sharpening notch is very long, but when you look at the width of that edge bevel, it's obvious that there's still some tapering going on into about right here. So a good 1/4 inch where that stock thickness is still thinning at the edge past the plunge grind. So not great there. And that's sort of where the critiques are going to stop. The tang of the blade forms a very nice finger choil as we approach the kick. Just great saber gripping, good overhand pinch gripping, and I've got all 4 fingers on the knife, which is pretty neat considering the handle length is sub 3.5 inches. Bolsters are beautifully polished. Transitions to the OD green canvas micarta, which is satin finish, are very good. Pins are all flush. The acorn shield nice and flush. Now let's come look at the liners. The surface of the liners is coined on both sides, and then the inside of the back spring is file worked very nicely. Back spring termination is beautifully square, nicely finished. And as we come around the knife, liners and back spring are beautifully polished. I can see lines of demarcation, but no gaps. I'm going to open the knife, and you'll see where the back spring terminates and the blade begins. You'll see some very short gaps between blade and bolster. That is due to the mill relieved liners, and we've seen this design element before. I'm trying to get the light to pick these up. I think you can barely see there. So the liners are mill relieved, leaving a raised round surface for the blade tang to ride on that emulates washers. This allows us to have super free action, great walk and talk with a pull weight that's probably a 3. So very, very light spring tension, but very free action. And there are 2 elements of the design that make that possible. The mill relieved liners, and I do not know this for a fact, but I am betting that this is a bushing pivot. So we have a large hole in the blade tang with a hardened bushing that goes through that hole, a precise slip fit into the hole, and very, very slightly taller than the thickness of the blade tang. So, you know, if the blade tang is 122 thousandths, the bushing in the center is probably 123 thousandths, maybe a little less than that, which allows the knife to be assembled tight. So when that center pin goes through and gets peened into the tapered holes in each bolster, no matter how hard you bang on it, it can't pinch the blade. So as long as that dimension is correct, the height of the bushing versus the thickness of the blade tang, we're going to get that super free action with 0 blade play, and that's what we got. So we can use a very light spring, and everything just feels precise and luxurious. Just listen to the sounds it makes. like a Swiss watch or a Mississippi pocket knife. If I did not mention it, the blade steel is CPM 154, hardened to 60 to 61 on the Rockwell C scale. See how she cuts. Just beautifully. Yeah. That steel just takes a super nice edge and should hold on to it for a long time. Michael asked me as he was informing me this was on its way if I would sort of compare this to some of Tony Bose's work. I think mechanically he's right on the money. As far as blade grinding and metal finishing, I think he's got a little ways to go. But keep in mind, guys, there's no CNC equipment in Todd's shop. And all of his blade grinding is done without jigs, completely freehand. But you know, the one area where he sort of falls down, the two I think that could be improved on this blade, where plunge grind meets the base of the edge, of course. That could be better. And also, non-CNC related, the quality of his hand rubbed satin is just a little inconsistent. You know, if we're gonna compare to the master, a Tony Bose hand rubbed satin will look a lot better than this. However, this is about a $500 custom slip joint pocket knife. And as you guys know, if you can find a recent production, let's say last 10 or 15 years Tony Bose custom, you're going to pay four figures a couple times over to start. So I think Todd is doing really, really nice work. I will tell you, though, that aesthetically, this is not one of my favorite patterns of his that I've seen. I think he makes gorgeous clip points, pretty good looking spears, and his Warncliffs are just stunning. This blade, I don't think is really designed for aesthetics. It's really a utility blade shape. And I'm not sure the handle does it for me. It's just a little strange. But that is completely an individual taste kind of thing. I do think the acorn shield goes really well with the handle. And I like this sort of no frills trim. A knife that could certainly be a user, but then when you start looking closely at it, it has all these little special design elements. And they're design elements that use isn't going to affect. You could scuff up the blade and re-rub the satin. You could, the bolsters could get scuffed and scratched, and you can polish them. Same with the micarta. But the coined liners and the file worked back spring, those are kind of hidden from any of the effects of wear and damage. So it's going to be around for a long time looking sharp. Very, very nice work. And look at the polish on the spine of the blade, carrying through what he's done on the back spring and the liners. Just a really, really nice piece of work. Nice job, Todd. Good to have one of your creations in my hand and in the shop. That is all for this one, my friends. Thought you'd like to see this before it heads across the pond. The T.A. Davison slip joint spearfoot sheep spear. Grace to you and peace, my friends, from God our Father and the Lord Jesus Christ. And remember, the Word and Michael's T.A. Davison are sharp.